Hi, this is Kathy Baldwin of Unlearn the Crap and Level Up Your Soul is Calling. I'm so excited to share this amazing interview with you. I just had a conversation with Deepak Saini. What really struck me about how much of the health advice we've grown up believing is completely backwards. We've been taught marketing information as medical facts. You've heard it too. Eat less, move more, push harder, everything will be fine. But we know with the growth of autoimmune diseases, the increase of stress hormones that are happening within our body, that is not true. So when you listen to Deepak and you can hear the truth of how damaging that actually is, you're going to be blown away. Not just because it doesn't work, but because it keeps us trapped in a cycle of shame, stress, and exhaustion. What landed deepest for me was the way he explained how stress and old emotions don't just disappear. They live in our bodies. They show up as inflammation, hormone imbalances, gut issues, pain, fatigue, and eventually disease. That hit home for me because it ties right back to what I talk about here on this podcast. The crap that we've been carrying, often without even realizing it. And it shows up physically and steals our vitality. Listening to Deepak reminded me of times in my own life when I was pushing myself harder, doing all the right things, but still not feeling better and actually getting sicker. Hearing him break down the science and the strategies, it clicked that I was never failing, that it was the rules themselves that were wrong. It was the crap that we were taught. So this episode isn't about another diet or exercise routine. It's about unlearning the myths, understanding how your body actually works, and finding a way back to health and energy that doesn't come from punishment or deprivation. Because it opened up a whole new perspective for me. Let's dive in with Deepak Saini right now.
Welcome to Unlearn the Crap TV with your host, Kathy Baldwin. Unlearn the Crap TV is more than just a show. It's a movement towards breaking free from the disempowering structures designed to benefit the few at the expense of the many. It's about education, healing, and unlearning the detrimental beliefs that have been ingrained in society for generations. So now, please welcome the host of Unlearn the Crap TV, Kathy Baldwin.
Welcome to another episode of Unlearn the Crap and Level Up. Your soul is calling. My name is Kathy Baldwin and I am your host. Unlearn the Crap is about the conditioned responses and automatic programming that go into our neuroprogramming and how our brains are wired. It is what affects our limiting beliefs, our habits, and anything that takes us out of the game. It is also the physical manifestation of what happens when we have crap in our thoughts, and it leads to suppressed emotions, traumas, cortisol, and other hormones that lead to inflammation, affect our gut microbiome, and create disease within us. So unlearning the crap is about becoming fully empowered so that you can live your best life because your soul is calling you. Today, I am so excited to welcome my guest, Deepak Saini, and we are going to be talking about the brain and the power that it has for us. Deepak, welcome to the show. Could you tell us what crap you needed to unlearn so that you could level up?
Absolutely. First of all, thank you, Kathy, for having me on the show. I appreciate being here. I think I had like essentially two stages to unlearning the crap. So I'll briefly highlight and we can dig into more later. So number one, unlearning the crap was, again, too much into my backstory. I was broken, like physically broken. I was obese. I had an autoimmune condition, undiagnosed, and 2014, I hurt my back. The Western medical system, I like to say, did me no favors, wasted 18 months of my health with ineffective treatments, run around through the system, all that sort of thing. I took matters into my own hand and found a modality to work on my back. All I was trying to do was heal my back so I could pick up my children. My youngest was a baby at the time, and I couldn't even pick up a 10-pound baby out of her crib. So I was only trying to figure out how to heal my back. I came across in that process, I started doing PRP, platelet-rich plasma treatments. I found the notion of inflammation and how that really impacts our entire body and healing and what have you, and amongst other things as well. But initially, it was like on the healing. So I thought, well, if I can bring inflammation down systemically, the PRP should work better. The number one thing I came to realize that I could control myself was my nutrition. So I went cold turkey, and I'm using air quotes for those who are watching video, because that's changed over time. But I went cold turkey, got rid of the pizza, the booze, all the junk I was eating, all the crap I was eating, just to make it easier for my back to heal. And lo and behold, yes, my back did heal. I've probably better mobility than I had in my 20s. My autoimmune condition went into remission. Nobody knows why, but I really haven't been sick from like 10 years. That's all through COVID and everything like that. And the last 60 of the 100 pounds I've released just melted away in a matter of months by bringing inflammation down. So that was the first levering of like releasing some of the crap. That led me to, I'm a CPA by first profession, but that led me into coaching people on health. Originally back pain, weight loss, etc. But as I evolved myself and up-leveled myself, what I want for my own life, and I have a publicly stated goal to be a centenarian plus, people were drawn to me for, longevity and anti-aging. It's really about health span, not necessarily lifespan, but about a health span. So again, I took more courses, got trained in more things, et cetera, and started working with people in those goals in all sort of modalities. And I have a very comprehensive system that I work with people. But about a year ago, just over a year ago now, it's funny to say, I was really just looking for continuing education credits for other programs I had taken in the past, because we got to do these continuing education. And a friend of mine, convinced me to take a program that she ran with someone else, learning, timeline therapy, NLP, and hypnosis. And I was like, okay, whatever. I'm kind of interested in NLP, hypnosis, maybe party trick, whatever. And timeline therapy, I don't even know what that is, whatever. I have to tell you, and it was an accelerated course. And of course, we have to practice with each other, with our colleagues, going through those. And the work that I did on myself during that course just amazed me. And I'll share that in a moment here. But I did not realize some of the things, and don't get me wrong, people have horrific traumas in their life, and my trauma was insignificant to those people, but it was a trauma nonetheless that my unconscious mind was keeping suppressed. That I knew this had happened to me because people had told me, but I didn't realize the emotional effect it had on me. And that was like a major breakthrough, such to the point that I changed my whole business model to incorporate this into my work. And that was another major up-leveling for me, releasing that old emotional crap. And again, to this day, I still continue to get fine-tuned with my colleagues, because things always come up, or we can always improve ourselves. So yeah, so two major times where I really released the crap, and I'm sure there'll be more in the future, because we're always evolving as people. But yeah, those are my two main instances.
I love that. And you've probably already answered my next question, but could you introduce yourself to our audience and tell them, now that you have unlearned your crap, how are you leveling up and serving the world?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So I have a mission to impact 1 million lives. Now, I know I'm not going to have 1 million clients, but I have clients, of course, that are going to impact their family. There's maybe 3 or 4 people there, their children, maybe their parents or their community or what have you. And I've had clients who have, hundreds, 5,000 employees in their company, and they've changed one initiative, like their lunch program or something, to bring healthier food in. So like, that's how I'm making that, you drop a stone and the ripples go out. They get weaker as they go out, but we're doing this. That's my mission. If I can work like, couple thousand, entrepreneurs primarily in my work, which I'll explain in a second. I'm going to get that million people. So as you kind of alluded to earlier, or as I alluded to earlier, I work with people full gamut, from the mindset, that inner game work, right? Releasing the emotions, the limiting beliefs, etc., using hypnosis to maybe change our thought process around vices, etc. Nutrition, huge piece. Movement, controlling our automatic nervous system. So sleep, breath work, our environment. What can we control? What can we not control? What can we mitigate from our environment? Microplastics, lighting, pollution, toxins, etc. And then also, I also like to work with my clients on risk reward. Everything we do, we make hundreds of decisions every day, maybe thousands, little micro decisions. Some are bigger. And like, what are you doing that someone might do something that I would never do, that activity, a high risk activity. Maybe they ride motorbikes or they downhill ski or whatever. That's totally fine. But how are we going to mitigate the risk from a health point of view based on what you're already doing? And then for those, and not everyone wants to do this, I also have a network of clinicians and doctors that I work with to get advanced protocols, testing protocols, et cetera, stem cells, those types of things that I can also offer to my clients as well. So that's kind of the whole gamut, A to Z, right from the mindset, that's where it starts, to all the other things. And all those tactical things, the nutrition, movement, et cetera, all work so much better once we've unloaded the crap from the emotional level with my clients.
I love the fact that your business practice is 100% aligned with everything that Unlearn the Crap is about. We have minimized the effects, or what we thought the effects were, by our thoughts. Oh, it's just a word, or just a thought, or it was just a feeling. And we didn't ever really understand the true impact of what that has through our entire body, is our health, our wealth, our entire lifestyle, what we achieve, what we don't achieve. Would you say that mindset is as important, if not the most important part of the first step of unlearning crap?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's something to be said for like the education piece. We'll just use nutrition. It could be movement, whatever. How to do exercise, how to eat properly for us. Again, I do very robust testing protocols, DNA, microbiome, et cetera. Great, we get all this data points, and that might lead someone to, have the willpower or the desire or that really big why to go forward with it. But many people don't, or not for a sustained period. But we get down to that emotional level, that root cause of the unconscious mind, heal those traumas, however big or small they were. It's important to that person. Everything works so much better. And I'm sure, Kathy, you've talked about this before on the podcast, many studies. I was talking with someone yesterday in, I think it was Norway or one of the Scandinavian countries, 60,000 person study. That is a large study showing direct correlation between emotions and cancer. So our emotions cause unregulated negative emotions cause disease. And if we can work on that, that doesn't mean you're not going to get something, but we can totally push that out into the future. So instead of get something at 50, 60, 70, get it at 90. That's kind of my philosophy.
Well, I think that's fantastic, because you're right. To get those diseases near the end of our life is a lot better than in the middle or in our prime. I'd love to know more about this study, because I've always talked about the fact that emotions are both energetic, but as information, they go out into the world as energy for others to feel and respond. And we receive it as well through our heart, because our heart is a receiver as well as a transmitter. But our emotions are also chemicals that release different hormones in our body.
Absolutely, yeah.
Could you explain how that study proved that?
Oh boy, you're putting me on the spot there, Kathy. I just recently learned of this study myself, and again, I was blown away because of the size of it. A lot of studies, they're putting pharmaceuticals on people for studies of only 1,000 people. So 60,000 is a very large study, for sure. But the mechanics of that, I can't say. You're putting me a bit on the spot there, but I 100% believe it. I see it with my clients, even before I knew of this study or anything like that. And obviously I'm not a clinician. I don't run studies myself, but I see it with my clients. All of a sudden, we clear these negative emotions, and all of a sudden they're sleeping better. Their test
Yes.
scores come in better, and that's part of my program too. We test beforehand, then we do the emotional work. Then, there's obviously the coaching and the lifestyle factors, and then we test again at the end of the year. And I mean, there's all those components. So every single one of those contributes, but I think we can't underweight the work of healing ourselves from an emotional point of view. So kind of a cop-out answer. I don't actually know the answer to that question, Kathy,
That's okay.
but I see it with my clients all the time.
And I didn't mean to put you on the spot about that
Totally okay.
study. You just caught my attention because I'm always looking for new references to prove, because science is finally catching up to what people have believed were just woo. Because it was believed that it needed to be pharmaceutical, it needed to be medical in order for us to do those healings. You were talking about emotional healing, and I want to talk about this timeline. But before I do, one of the ways that I did my own healing journey was to go through and become a certified emotion code and body code healer by Dr. Bradley Nelson. And what we did with that was release suppressed traumas, because you're right that a trauma is a trauma. A fear is fear. Anger is anger. We do not have a scale. And so that scale of, well, my trauma is not as big as your trauma. The body only knows trauma. It doesn't know, it doesn't know scale. It doesn't know, oh, well, I should only have a little bit of an effect. No, if you have a trauma, your brain has been wired to keep you safe from that perceived danger. And trauma, we cannot live in this world without experiencing some sort of trauma. It's just part of the human condition.
It just happens to all of us.
Yes, yes. So how did you incorporate this timeline healing? Was it, sorry, I got a little distracted with my question. What I was trying to say was, when I was doing my emotion code, I found that my traumas, where they were a sexual attack, for example, I had so much existing in my uterus. Well, I had fibroids and cysts, and I needed a full hysterectomy. And I released all those emotions. When I released all that energy that was still left over, even though I'd had a full hysterectomy, everything changed in my body. How does this timeline therapy work?
Yeah, so I'll speak from my experience first, and maybe can share with some clients as well.
Please.
So I think there's two parts to your question there, Kathy, if I'm understanding. So I'll explain timeline therapy first, and then how it impacted me physically and emotionally. So for those who might not know, so if you think of a string of pearls, I think we all can understand that visual, stretched out. So we all have a timeline, and it can be oriented. Some people might see the past to the left of them. Some people might see the future to the right, or vice versa, or the future's in front or the past behind. That doesn't really matter. But we all have like a timeline, and every event, from let's just use anger as a negative emotion. Every event that we experience anger is one of those pearls on the timeline. So in timeline therapy, we get to the unconscious mind, right? We get someone relaxed, really tuned into their unconscious mind. Of course, there's a lot of pre-framing and stuff before we actually do the session. But we actually take the person back to that prior to that first event, right at that first event where they first experienced, in our case, we're talking about anger. That could be, for most people, it's before the age of 6 or 7. Sometimes it's at birth. Sometimes it's past life, or pre-generational. I've had clients who've gone back 7 generations with a negative emotion. So go back to that very first instance, right before that first instance happened, and then we have the person come up with the positive learnings from that experience. And me as a facilitator, sometimes someone will say something like that's we wouldn't deem a positive statement, and then I'm there to reframe it for them immediately, so that they only have positive learnings from that experience. And it doesn't mean it didn't happen. It doesn't mean we're going to forget that it happened. And sometimes we didn't know these things happen. Sometimes the consciously we don't remember. Our unconscious mind always knows. Our body always knows. So, and then we clear that first instance, and then we go forward and clear every instance to present. Make sure that emotion is not there. Test out into the future, make sure the emotion is not there, and then that emotion is done. Now, I want to be very clear. That doesn't mean you'll never get angry again, or you'll never get sad again, or whatever emotion. It just means, how are you going to react? How are you going to show up the next time that trigger that would have triggered you in a certain way is no longer going to trigger you that way anymore? We sometimes like to say, you can't do your problem the same way anymore. So we typically go through all seven negative emotions, and then all limiting beliefs, typically three or four of them. And there's more to it, but that's basically high level timeline therapy. Speaking of myself, again, I mentioned earlier, I knew this event happened to me, and I've shared this before. So when I was about 18 months old, my parents left me with my aunt and uncle and my cousins to move to a different province to find work and get settled and everything like that. And they come back and forth to visit on the weekends. But, it took them a few months to sort of get settled. I had no idea until I did this work that my unconscious mind finally felt safe enough. Again, our unconscious mind's number one job is to protect us. So
Yes.
that I felt safe enough to be aware of that all my negative emotions, anger, sadness, fear, hurt, guilt, shame, rage, all came from that one instance of being left behind.
Yeah.
Nothing else happened. Like, I didn't have any other, sexual assault or anything like that. It was just, I was left behind with caring family members, but my unconscious mind at the time was angry that happened. I was sad that happened. I was hurt that happened. And it was until I cleared that up, I was like, oh, and I have a different appreciation for my parents as well. Now, physically, and I've done a lot of work, not just this work, a lot of, that I've had practitioners, do body code, emotion code, all sorts of things, because I'm a bit of a self-optimizer. So if I think something might help me out in mentally, physically, emotionally, whatever, I'll try it out. But one thing I do know about myself, going back a number of years, I was someone who was very heart protected. I would put a shield up. So very stoic. It took a lot to get emotional, that sort of thing. And since doing that work, I would say I'm a lot more heart open now. I'm not saying I'm not where I want to be. I'll be the first to admit that, but I'm a lot more heart open. As far as something physically, like tangible, as far as like a pain or something like that, I can't for myself say that I had any benefit. Mind you, by this time of doing this work, again, that was about a little bit over a year ago, I'd already overcome my back challenge, already released the weight, et cetera, et cetera. But with clients, I have certainly seen, again, improved sleep, migraines disappear, little aches and pains, just, all of a sudden, like, oh, yeah, I used to, if I sat for 3 hours, I think most people, if you sit for 3 hours straight, you're going to get a little bit of back soreness or tightness, right? Just whatever, but little aches and pains. So I can't say there's anything super phenomenal, like in your case that happened, but we do certainly see a lot of things with my clients.
There are so many different ways that we could take this conversation, because there are so many topics that you would say something. I thought, oh, I want to touch on that, and I want to touch on that. So I want to touch on one of the things that happened with you as an 18-month-old being left, because I just recently saw a science experiment that explained the value of playing peekaboo. With a new child, that it teaches the child that just because you can't see somebody, it doesn't mean they're not there.
Right.
And it helps children process those gaps in time when their caregivers go to work or go like what happened to you, because the baby can't understand that concept that it's not permanent. And
Interesting.
that is an amazing example of what you just explained, that as a baby, you would have no cognitive way of understanding this is a temporary situation. All
Right.
of a sudden, your world had been ripped apart. And that is a major, major trauma for a child.
Yeah, that's interesting. I haven't heard that story. I'm going to go look it up now. So
Yeah, we're learning so much about the effects of things, because if a child like you at 18-month old all of a sudden no longer felt safe, your body would be living in its sympathetic nervous system almost all the time, wondering what's next. When's the shoe going to drop? And I'm wondering if you feel your back issue was your body's way of saying, hey, you need to come back to self.
that's an interesting question. What I will say, and again, I will say the weight loss, the autoimmune condition, the back to some degree was all very methodical and strategic in the loss and in the recovery. But I 100% believe that it was these suppressed emotions which allowed me to keep the weight on, and there's probably lots of people are going to watch this who are like, that 2025 roller coaster weight loss, lose 20 pounds in the summer, gain it all back by like, end of first semester, like that type of thing by Christmas.
Yeah.
So definitely, I think the negative emotions played a part in being heavy. Certainly confidence, when it comes to, girls and all that sort of thing, that certainly plagued me when I was younger as well. And then that has a ripple effect, because like you're overweight. So for too much that your body is actually genetically meant to carry. So now it leads to like knee pain, which I suffered greatly. Yeah, I played football and sports. There's all these reasons, and you need orthotics and all that stuff. But lo and behold, you just lose the weight and your knee pain goes away. Right. So, and back pain, et cetera, all these types of things. So there's ripple effects. So I don't know. And I was doing a lot of chronic cardio, like just pounding the pavement, doing half marathons, preparing for marathons. And I think that totally broke me down. But I don't discount the fact that there was an emotional component of that too. It's easy for
Yeah.
me to say that it was only the mechanicals or very concrete, tangible things that I was doing that led to XYZ. But I think there's always an underlying emotion. There's always an underlying emotion. I just didn't even know about that at that time. And by the time I was even aware enough doing this type of work on myself, and now incorporating that with my clients, I'd already been past the healing stage on those things. So it's kind of hard for me to say, but I don't discount the energetics of that at all.
The other thing that you talked about that I think is so fascinating is I'm always talking about the universal laws and the law of polarity and the law of relativity, and that the law of relativity changes our perspective. And when we change our perspective, we change our reality, and it will go back through. So when you were talking about that string of pearls in the timeline healing, I love the fact that you found the lesson so that it undid it. And the example that I give is I had a lot of digestive issues. And when I went through and went to the root cause, I found that it was my mother's joke. She had a joke that she was so perfect that she didn't even have bodily functions. And she would say it in that voice, in this sarcastic, I'm the queen voice. And it was a joke. But in my brain, it said that there was something wrong with me because I had bodily functions. And so when I went to the root cause of that and went, that was a joke. Well, of course, I want my body to work properly. Of course, I want it all to do its proper processes. Almost instantaneously,
Yeah.
all of those digestive issues almost went away almost immediately. Have you seen instances like that as you're working with your clients or with yourself?
Um, With clients, yes. Again, I mentioned like all these sleep things just magically go away. Migraine just magically go away. They've tried pharmaceuticals and hormone therapy, taking progesterone, et cetera. And it's like, you just get to clear some of the stuff up and it's just went away. I haven't had a migraine and I can't remember the last time, like these are the type of things.
Yes.
I want to share, actually, this happened actually recently. I was working with somebody. You just reminded me of it. When we did timeline therapy and we got to the root cause, this is a lady who was carrying a lot of extra weight, very successful in her own right in her business, very, all that sort of thing, but very unhealthy. We got to the root cause. When she was young, 5-6 years old, her father said, "Don't shine too bright because then you cast a shadow on others." So her unconscious mind said, "You can't be too, you can't shine. You can't be a star in your own right." So because she worked very diligently and very hard, and has a lot of success in her business, but where is her unconscious mind telling her, "Well, you can't shine. You're shining too much over here. We need to dim you somewhere else." And it translated into her health. And this was a big like aha for her. She's like, "I didn't even realize this." And this is actually
Yeah.
someone I've worked with recently. So again, there's some tasking and there's some, actual habit change type of things we are incorporating with her. But now this like epiphany, it's like, she's, I mean, it's only been a couple of weeks, but like she's, and it's easier, obviously, the more heavier you are, the weight comes off faster at the beginning, as it gets harder at the end. But like, 8 pounds week 1, 5 pounds week 2, like just releasing, I think, is all emotional weight, and yeah, we're removing some things and things like that. So yeah, great example of that. And for myself, yeah, I can't really think of anything physically. Again, a lot of that work was already for me. As I'm really, my big, just more of a personal note, my big focus in doing not only this work and other modalities and working with other practitioners of different styles and healing modalities, I've been really focusing on, my emotional health, and then how that mostly translates into my personal relationships. Any spillover into my business, that's all positive, and that has come as well. But I'm really trying to focus on my personal relationships with my wife and my children, and that next circle, parents, sister, in-laws, etc., as well as my own sort of mental health. So
Absolutely. I want your thoughts and opinions on the fact that our body wants to be in homeostasis. And what I was thinking as you were talking was that we reset our thermostat. We reset our normal. And when we reset our normal, our body automatically says, "Oh, okay. So I don't need to be carrying this weight because I'm not in danger anymore. Now I need to release it." And so we don't have to go on crash diets. We don't have to do these things that create stress, because our body wants us to be in a natural state of balance and rhythm. Do you think that's what was happening?
absolutely. I'll share 2 points. Number one, this was still when I was at university, still very obese, really. But I used to, like train like powerlifting, that type of training. And that was just known, right? Like, if you want to build your chest or back, you have to work your legs. Your body wants to be in balance. You can't be. And yes, we see these cartoonishy people sometimes, and they get out of balance. And you can get to some degree, but your body wants to be in homeostasis, absolutely, even from like a aesthetic, how you're carrying your weight point of view. So that's one point I wanted to make. The second, I think, what people find interesting, I was always the chubby kid. Like, I can't remember a time when I wasn't like at least chubby, and then I got, again, morbidly obese as a teenager. But when I was, how old would I have been? 12-ish, 12, 13, something. I started playing football. So, junior, like Pee Wee or whatever type of thing. And then all the way through high school, and 1 year after high school. In 4 years, so I was already a chubby kid. I just want to preface that. So in 4 years, 3 years of high school and the last year of junior high, middle school, I put on 100 pounds. Now, did I put on a little bit of muscle mass? Yeah, probably, because I'm training and stuff like that. but I put 100 pounds because, well, bigger is better, and there's no guidance, right? Like, we didn't have a nutritionist working with us at the high school football team or anything like that, right? So it's like, yeah, whatever, carbs are your friend, all, whatever, right? So I put on 100 pounds, and I was, pretty good, and I got scouted for colleges and that type of thing. But, again, all that inflammation, what basically killed me was like just knee pain. I had too much inflammation in my body. But anyway, the reason I bring that up is after, healing my back, autoimmune condition going into remission, losing the last 60 of that 100 pounds, where did I end up from a weight point of view? The same weight I started with before I put on that 100 pounds. Now my body composition had changed. I was more muscular, I was more lean, but the weight was the exact same. And I know this because we had to get weighed in. I remember how much I weighed every year at the beginning of the season. And I was like, okay, I'm going up, I'm going up, I'm going up, I'm going up, I'm going up. Then, like, when I stopped playing football and I was in the workforce, and all that, so, like, I was always someone not like constantly every day on the scale, but every, periodically I go, where are we at? Where are we at? Let's try a crash diet. Where are we at? Me and my wife lost, I lost 30 pounds heading into our wedding because we wanted to, like, look good for our wedding photos, type of thing. So tracking that. So, like, I have years history of, like, where I weight or where I was at. And then when I kind of settled after all this and everything, I was like, I'm the exact same weight I was when I started playing football. The very first weigh-in that I had to do in grade 9, I'm the same weight. Now, I put on a little bit of muscle mass because muscle mass is important for my longevity goals. So I put about 10 pounds of muscle mass on since then. But I find it so interesting that that was my body's homeostasis point. Same weight I was when I was, like, in grade 9.
And so your body was telling you there was something wrong. It was trying to get your attention. For me, right around 12, I had 2 very traumatic things happen. One, I was attacked by 5 boys. And the other thing was my parents moved me from a really supportive neighborhood into a new neighborhood because it was a nice, better house and all these things. But I went from a circle of friends that loved and adored me and protected me into I was ostracized. And so those 2 things put me into a health spiral of up and down the yo-yo weight, because I would then try to control it. Oh no, my body's putting on weight, I got to control it. And I would over exercise or under eat or do any of these things to try and control it. And then as soon as I took my eye off the ball, my body's like, whoa, let's get more of this weight back on, right? Because our body, once we create a environment that our body believes that we are in danger, it's going to do everything to keep us as safe as possible. And if it believes that weight or that disease or for another issue that came up for me was I had TMJ. And that all went away when I went through my healing journey. But I love the fact that we're sharing these stories that say these medical conditions that we've been given, whether it is our back, our weight, whatever else, our knees, whatever has happened. It's not a sentence. It's a photograph.
Absolutely. And I love that you use the word sentence. I'm going to go just take us a little bit off our current line for a second, but I did just, you triggered it. Again, I mentioned earlier, I'm a huge proponent of testing, like DNA, microbiome, et cetera, et cetera. And one thing, I was having this conversation, I was speaking to a community last night, and one of the co-hosts said, I don't know if I want to know, like, if I have a certain gene or genes that makes me more susceptible to XYZ. And I've said this many, many times before. I have one of the ApoE variants that makes me about 10 to 15% more likely to get Alzheimer's. I have family members that have passed from Alzheimer's. I know this is part of it, but, like, great. I'm glad I know, because now I can take preventative steps. And this person wasn't sure about it. So I love the fact that you brought that up, because, again, we can have this information, and it's just information, it's just data points, and now we can do something about it, whether it be physically, tactically, or more importantly, kind of in line with our conversation today, emotionally as well. And I'm sure you've talked about, Louise Hayes before, or even maybe Bruce Lipton, Biology of Belief, and these are some of the things that the type of books that I read to see. And
my
I don't know if you're
mentors.
familiar. Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
I'm not sure.
they were big in my early mentoring. Bruce Lipton was huge for me.
Yeah, one thing I've just recently come across, and I would be perfectly clear, I'm not a master in this yet, but meta health. I'm not sure if you're familiar with this, Kathy, but it's looking at certain conditions, whether it be cancers or whatever the case may be. And there's hundreds of conditions that also takes not only a tactical supporting the body through maybe supplementation or nutrition or whatever, but also that emotional piece. And there's always that emotional piece, and that some of these types of leaders in the medical or energetic medical, you want to call it that, who take that medical approach of, your body's probably deficient in XYZ and this, but also there's the emotion component, and the protocol is an emotional and tactical approach. And this just intrigues me. This is something relatively new. I knew this was happening, but I was like, oh, that's over in Europe or wherever. I'm like, I don't know. It's not happening here in North America. And it just recently came to me. I was like, I need to look into this more, because this is, I think, can be so powerful. Yeah.
Yes. So you brought up Bruce Lipton. Not everyone who's listening is going to know who he is or what he brought to the world. Bruce Lipton was a cellular biologist, and he was able to prove that our DNA can change when we change our environment. And I love that you brought up Alzheimer's, because I have heard of recent studies that say that our gut microbiome is one of the precursors to Alzheimer's and Parkinson and diabetes and everything else, and that it all lives within our gut microbiome. What do you think about that?
Yes, I think it's becoming quite popular. I think many people have heard now that, your gut is your second brain. Arguably, and a lot of people are start more and more, is like, actually your gut is your first brain. It is actually running, and that brain gut axis is very powerful, and information is going back and forth, chemical and light and etc. as well. So yes, the more I work with my clients, again, I do very robust testing protocol. The more I work with my clients, the more it's a little more further along the key to many of these things. And it might not be like big diseases like Alzheimer's or Parkinson's or whatever. It could just be like how they're showing up energetically, or they're crashing at 2 o'clock. And there's a whole gamut of the spectrum of those things. The more I'm like, it's all related to the gut. If you have a healthy gut, and there's one thing to have like leaky gut and all these kind of, those kind of conditions. And it's also another to just like not seeing or feeling any symptoms, but being optimized and having the right metabolites coming out after the microbiome. And that's another big test that I like to use, is metabolites. What is after all your digestion of everything? What's left over? And I like to pair those together, because they complement each other very well. I want to share this, Kathy, because this has happened to me in the last 6-7 months. Again, metabolite testing in a clinical in a research level, been around for 10, 15, 20 years. To the consumer-led tests of testing metabolites is relatively new. Like, we're talking like 2 years. So this is relatively new things that I've incorporated with my clients. So I'm like, okay, well, I have to do my own tests, right? Like can't have my clients do stuff that I haven't done myself. So I went and got that done. And what came out for me was that my gut microbiome does not produce GABA. And GABA, people may or may not know this, GABA is very highly correlated, or lack of GABA, very highly correlated to Parkinson's. Now, Parkinson's and Alzheimer's are two different diseases, but they're on that same spectrum of neurocognitive diseases. I already know I have genes for Alzheimer's. Well, I don't want Parkinson's either. So I'm in the process of rebuilding my gut so I can produce GABA. But in the meantime, now I know I need to supplement with GABA to, at least for a certain level. And again, the tests tell me exactly how much I should be taking for my size and all that kind of stuff. So until I can figure out the experiment that is my body, of producing it myself. And maybe I'll never be able to. Maybe I'm missing some enzyme or something. I don't know. We don't know yet. But I need to supplement. And again, there's a bunch of other things like that. But that's a personal example with me that I've been sharing. I was like, I'm not producing GABA, and I don't want Parkinson's. It's not in my family, but it's on that same band. So
Absolutely.
preventative, right?
Absolutely. One of the interesting other things that I recently learned is that the egg that produced you was in your grandmother's body. And so all of the chemical emotions, all of the DNA, epigenetics, all of the environment that your grandmother went through and then went to your mother and then created you has gone back through so many generations. So you don't know how far back your gut biome has adapted to not having this GABA. And so having this information brings us to a point of awareness that it doesn't mean there's something wrong. It just means this is the facts of what we are living with right now. And so when we know the facts, now we can make conscious, informed decisions.
Absolutely. And Kathy, you just brought something to mind that I had never even considered before. So step back. My parents are of mixed marriage. So my dad is East Indian. My mom is European. Obviously, you get me and my sister. Everything from a food point of view, where I have not allergies, but sensitivities to, everything that I should be able to tolerate based on my dad's ancestry, I can't. And everything that I should be able to tolerate based on my mom's ancestry, I can't, which is kind of a weird thing. So, and I always took that from a DNA point of view, certain enzymes, et cetera, et cetera. And I totally 100% believe in inherited trauma, et cetera. But it wasn't until you just said that just now, I was like, there might be something intergenerationally about not being able to process certain things that I can process. I never thought about that. That's an interesting thought for me to explore.
Well, our DNA evolves through these generations. I remember I was working with one client, and she had said that she never, ever remembered feeling happy. Her whole life had felt like anger and sadness were her only emotions, and she just didn't know. And she was having all these physical symptoms. And so when we did the energy work on her, we went back 7 generations. And as soon as we cleared that generational trauma, almost immediately, those physical symptoms, like she had really massive frequent urination to the point where 15 minutes was her max. I mean, she was she was constantly in the bathroom. And after we were doing these clearing sessions, she realized that, she said it was like 3 hours and she hadn't gone to the bathroom. And she thought, and then she caught herself laughing. And she caught herself smiling just automatically. And so she was seeing these things happening just by clearing that, because the energy of our experience doesn't have a time. It's all on one energetic connection.
Yeah, and we all know, or everyone should by now, energy is not created nor destroyed, just transferred. So
yes. I think that is so amazing how you're able to take this and really make a difference in people's lives.
Yeah, the other thing I just want to share about timeline therapy, just probably a lot of people haven't heard about it, and since I have this opportunity platform, and don't get me wrong, all modalities work, all therapies work, right? The one thing I appreciate about time, and many other my clients do as well, is that timeline therapy, it's not like talk therapy. We don't have to relive it again. I don't even need to know what the thing is. I just need to know those positive learnings from it. And again, if somebody says a negative, I try and reframe it but I don't need to know the situation. That sometimes it comes out, people just want to share, but there's no requirement to do it, which is, again, saves me from that energy as well, and the client from not having to actually talk it out and relive it in the conscious brain, right? And that rumination, it's we're doing this all at the unconscious mind level. So anyway, I just wanted to make that clear because I forgot to mention that.
Yeah, no, that is really fascinating, because I just saw another a report that right around the time of Freud, there was somebody else who had a different belief than Freud, which was we don't need to relive the traumas. We don't need to do the talk therapy, that we can do this. And Freud got more attention. And so all of the focus went into his philosophies, his thought processes, and we've gone like 100 years. And now we're starting to understand, we don't need to create more toxicity by reliving this negative,
Exactly.
or this disempowerment, that we can just decide it's not of value. I don't need or want to carry this anymore. I can just let it go.
Can I share a story, Kathy? You might know this. This was new to me, like maybe a year ago, and I might get some of the details a little bit wrong. I'm not a Freud expert or anything like that, but my understanding is that originally Freud was more of using his own, what we now would consider NLP techniques or hypnosis techniques that time, and well, certainly hypnosis was around back then already, and he was more inclined to doing that type of work. But I guess I forget, what was it, like alcohol or smoking or something, or chewing tobacco? He was a very strong user of that, and actually his teeth rotted out. And back then we didn't have dentures we have now; they were like wooden dentures. So it made it very difficult for him to talk. So he switched his whole philosophy so he didn't have to talk so much, and like a hypnotherapist would, to more of a talk therapy, where just a couple prompts and then you let the client talk and talk and talk, and you just listen and nod. He changed the whole thing, and that's what became kind of the next thing we did for the next 60 years. So that was kind of fascinating to me to learn that. So anyway, I don't know if you knew that.
Isn't that fascinating that he was adapting to his personal circumstances, and it changed the trajectory of millions of people?
Yep, absolutely.
It's kind of like that funny parable about a person who cuts a fish a certain size, and generation after generation, they would just cut it to this size.
Oh, yeah.
And when
they cut the head and the tail off or whatever, and like, why? Grandma's like, because my pan didn't fit the whole thing or whatever, right? Yeah.
But yet we had evolved into this process. I was recently also saw another monkey experiment where they called it the 100th monkey. And that by the time you had trained the 100th monkey to do something, it just became common knowledge in all monkeys. And the situation was that they would have food for the monkey, but it was full of sand. And so they taught one monkey to go to the river and wash the sand off. Well, before that time, the monkeys didn't like the water, but by the time the 100th monkey had come along, they were always washing their food in the river. And now they were bathing in the river, and they were playing in the river. I mean, that's how fast it evolved, when one change of a thought, and that exponential change just kept coming faster and faster.
Yeah. Can I know we're running short on time here, Kathy, but
I know.
Can I share another
Yeah.
experiment that I've heard of from the past, very similar, where they were some remote islands, we're talking 100 years ago plus whatever, where they were observing the monkeys for behavior, and then one of the researchers had washed, like his mug or his plate or something, and then they saw the monkeys starting to do it. So I don't know, maybe it's the same story or what have you, but it's a bit of a different twist. And then they realized, oh, we've contaminated our experiment because we've interjected us as the researchers into their culture, their community. So they're like, okay, we have to scrap this. And they went to a different island, and they soon realized that, hey, the monkeys are doing the same thing. But how could this be? How would they have learned this? And point being is that it was a collective consciousness.
Yes.
Through a species, even though they were separated by how many
Yes.
kilometers of ocean and the monkeys don't swim, they never would have actually, from this on to this on, but it was a collective consciousness through the species that which they eventually, I mean, not those research at the time because we didn't have that kind of thinking, but subsequently, like that explanation. I find that kind of stuff fascinating.
Absolutely. And that could not prove the point more, that everything we do, healing ourselves, releasing our traumas, stepping into the best version of ourselves, is the greatest gift we can give the world.
Absolutely. 100%.
I have loved every second of this conversation, Deepak. If people are listening and they say, okay, I'm ready, I want to get to my optimum health, I want to know what my test results are, I want to release the weight, I want to get to the root cause of what is taking me off of my disempowerment, and they want to work with you, how do they reach out to you and how do they find you?
Yeah, I think the best way is, I'm a big believer that, you can't take anyone's word for anything. I need to earn everyone's trust by how I show up in the world and by what I'm putting out there, the good work I'm doing, what I'm sharing. So what I actually like to do is, yes, you can go to my website, you can find my contact thing. I would actually like to give a free gift to the audience. It's a guide. It's 7 steps to optimize your mental, physical, and financial performance. And there's 7 things you can do. Is a little read up, and maybe some people are doing them, maybe they're not. And then at the back, there's like a 30-day tracker. So you can try one of these new habits out. Now, I'm going to preface, don't try all 7 at one time. That's a disaster for failure. Pick 1, maybe 2, try it for 30 days. If it resonates with you, great. You picked up a new habit. Go back and try a different one. If it doesn't resonate with you, that's fine too. After some period of time, one or more of those 7 will resonate with you, and you have to go for it. That's just my free gift to everyone. But downloading that gift, sharing your email address to me, puts you into my ecosystem. Then you get to know what I'm doing, what I'm all about, what I'm sharing, so that I can build that trust with you. Because I don't expect anyone to. I'm the same way. I don't just like, oh, this person's so and so and whatever. I want to work with you. It's like, no, that person needs to earn my trust just as I expect I need to earn other people's trust. So download this free gift and let me earn your trust.
Oh, thank you so very much. You are absolutely right. It's kind of like a science experiment. If you change all of the variables, how do you know what worked and what didn't work? So changing one variable and finding out, oh, how does my body, how does my life respond to this? Thank you so much for that generous gift. It has been a joy and a pleasure. I loved our conversation. I know that the audience has gotten a lot out of it. Thank you so much for your time and your expertise and your energy.
You're welcome, guys. Thank you for having me on. This was a really fun conversation, and went a lot of different paths. It was a fantastic conversation. Thank you.
Welcome to Unlearn the Crap, where we will talk, because everything matters, everything affects everything, and so we bring it all in. Until next time, keep challenging your thoughts and your beliefs, because you are being called to level up and you do matter. We'll see you next time on Unlearn the Crap. I'm Kathy Baldwin. Thank you for listening to the Unlearn the Crap and Level Up podcast. If this conversation spoke to you, please like, share, comment, subscribe, and leave a review. That simple act helps amplify this important work of unlearning the crap that holds us back. This show is built on the foundation of my 3 books: Unlearn the Crap and Level Up, Your Soul is Calling, a roadmap to release what no longer serves you. How I Unlearned My Crap, which is my raw story of breaking free and the patterns that I needed to unlearn. And the 3rd book, The Unlearned Life, an AI-powered ritual system for truth transformation and personal empower. If you're a podcaster or you want to be, this is for you, because 85% of podcasts fail. Not because of the message isn't powerful enough, but because the back end can be overwhelming. I created the Finally Podcast automation system so your voice doesn't become a statistic. Your message is too important to be silenced by burnout,
tech chaos, or even wasted time. My mission is to support not only my guests and you, the audience, but also every podcaster who's ready to level up. So until next time, keep unlearning, keep leveling up,